Ah, the joy of a good first-class airline lounge. You can relax away from the purgatory of the terminal while being waited on hand and foot, sipping the very finest of champagne known to humanity. But imagine spending 24 hours in here. Yeah, from the relaxed Asian style of Cathay Pacific to upmarket Qantas, the horrors of American Airlines First Class to the quiet sophistication of British Airways. I'm going to be trying both first and business class lounges, sampling the champagne in each, just so you don't have to. I'm here at Terminal 3, again, where there's the most intense lounge hopping scene known to man. And with the right card, you can get into every one, and that's what I'm going to do at London Heathrow Terminal 3, going around all 7 of the oneworld lounges. But that means an early start from the square mile in the heart of London and a brisk walk along the Thames. But don't worry, I can cope with the trauma because I've been to Tottenham. And then on the new Elizabeth line, which runs from the heart of London to the bus station interchange between Terminals 2 and 3. A quick run up the escalators and check into what in theory is a quick hop over to Australia via Gothenburg in business class, as you do, and then study the very confusing instruction manual for the plethora of lounges in the terminal. Indeed, the profusion of options leads to some mild discombobulation, and that's even before hitting the champagne. Well, here I am at London Heathrow. I've only got a short hop today, but I've got plenty of time in Terminal 3, so I set myself up with a challenge. What would happen if I tried to visit all 7 oneworld lounges in a row and compare and contrast them? It's a tough challenge, but somebody's got to do it, and I'm absolutely determined that somebody's got to be me. First up, the Qantas lounge. Let's get straight round to it. We're on the start of the orders, I'm off, and I've already found the first cocktail bar. Now this is what I call Antipodean sophistication. The Qantas London Lounge is set on 2 floors with 2 dedicated bars. You don't have to be flying Qantas to access the Qantas Lounge, you just have to fly oneworld, like BA or Cathay, with a oneworld Sapphire or Emerald status card. Alas, when the 2 Qantas flights a day aren't leaving, that's early in the morning or late at night, the catering descends into a small buffet on the top floor. It's quite adequate for me this early this morning, even if there's a heavy bent towards salads and other greenery with rocket goat and radishes. If you fancy a drop of decent Aussie wine, the crew wheel along a wine trolley for you. No champagne, but you can pour yourself a great Aussie sparkling wine. Today it's Petaluma Crozza from Adelaide. If you go ladle diving, you might find a mushroom in that soup. Today it's Portuguese chicken in reduced wine. There's also a Neil Perry flavoured water station if you like that kind of thing. Now here's a shocker, you can now enter the lounge on any carrier as the lounge has become a pay-in lounge during the day. Admittedly, Qantas want the reassuringly expensive fee of £110 if you want to pay on the door, but you do get half price for short visits. That means anybody can visit the famous gin bar on the ground floor. And downstairs it's all about gin, with dozens to try from Hendrick's, Tarangay, No. 10, Sipsmith and the Botanist gin. It's also got some uniquely Australian gins, including a 4 Pillars from Victoria and the famous Greenand gin from Adelaide, plus Sullivan's Cove Hobart, No. 4 and Byron Bay dry gin. If I spend all day in here I wouldn't be getting on a plane, at least that's what I naively thought I'd be doing. Instead, I'm reducing the wine. Beer's also available, British on draft, Aussie in bottles. But the downside of permitting the hoi polloi in through the door, even on rival alliances like Delta and Virgin, is that the Neil Perry-inspired a la carte dining is strictly for the evening flight now. But no time to hang around. I've got to see a man about a pub and find some real waiter-served dining in a lounge, just a short walk along a long pier, where Asian delights await in the Cathay Pacific Lounge. I feel like I'm back in my natural environment, and I ought to be actually, after popping in here pretty much once a week for a decade. Now, some airlines feel like they're going to produce something fabulous without compromise, but have a miserable bank balance, or just compromise and make all the passengers miserable. Well, Cathay have done the former, and it's a wonder to behold. Literally the best lounge on the oneworld circuit at Terminal 3. Indeed, there are only 49 seats in the lounge, and it's only open to a select few with a first ticket or the top-tier Diamond Asia Mild card holders. There's a fantastic array of self-pour spirits, great wines you just pour yourself, and a choice of 3 champagnes to tuck into for breakfast. Yep, that's exactly where I'm heading now. And then you take your glass of poo and unwind and watch the planes go by. Spot how the cleverly designed side tables include a pull-out drawer with UK plug sockets and USB ports so you can charge your devices. There's a formal sit-down dining area which has only 8 tables, making it feel very exclusive. Of course, I had to go for the Eggs Benedict and then follow it up with Dan Dan noodles, done Hong Kong style of course. It had already rolled onto lunchtime by this point, so I checked out the signature burger. And finally, ended it all with a raspberry frangipangi, if only because I like the name, and that pretty much finished me off for the rest of the day. The restaurant is styled upon the lines of a 1960s Hong Kong cafe called a Cha Chun Ting, listed now by UNESCO on their intangible cultural list, don't you know, and a vital part of any visit to Kowloon. There's also buffet dining in what's called the pantry, with an amazing array of desserts, salads, and today, Portuguese custard tarts, with a theme going on I think, and Malaysian pastries. An excellent choice of spirits in first. Spot the Grey Goose, Glenfiddich, and the best of Hampshire gins, Bombay Sapphire. No shortage of beer in bottles, but I need to wean myself off champers for a minute, so I had a beer as a palate cleanser, then a couple of gin and tonics. Cathay Pacific call the lounge a personal living space. It's designed by Studio Ills, the London-based design studio, and if you want the furniture at home, you just sign up to empty your bank account. But I need to make a move. No chance of visiting the proletariat in the business class side. There's yet more first class lounging to go. A quick bit of plane spotting and let's crack on with lounge crawlers. I've only got a couple of hours left to lounge hop, and my British Airways flight actually takes less time than that. And BA do have a first lounge at Terminal 3, tucked away to the left-hand side of the blue door corridor. If you need to ask what this is, you don't have the right kind of frequent flyer card. Indeed, now is the time to visit one of the most unregarded of the first-class lounges at Heathrow, vastly overshadowed by its larger sibling in Terminal 5 and indeed the Concorde Room. Now, the Terminal 3 First Lounge is often overlooked as being a little manky and down at heel, which is why it's had some new furniture and new carpet since COVID, although I'm sure the two aren't connected. Now, I peeked at perkiness in Cathay, and I hadn't even got to friskiness yet, but look, an open bar and a huge number of bottles of spirits. I can make some inventive cocktails with this lot. There's a trough of wine, 3 very pedestrian reds, white and rosé. BA having a big rosé push at the moment. Wandering through the lounge, and what do I find? Well, as much champagne as you can wave a boarding card at. It's Parmesan Co. Not a bad drop from Reims and about 35 quid down Tesco. But mid-afternoon already, and this is a bit odd, there's not a soul in the champagne bar. Still, more for me. Catering's okay, but it's got to be said it's not Cathay Pacific First, but then again, this is a lounge designed for short-haul hops. Hence there are plenty of curries and hot meat pies. The catering isn't bad at all, with lots of decent British food, sandwiches, and I love this, a proper afternoon tea with finger sandwiches, scones, and a clotted cream. They certainly hit the spot. There's actually a proper first dining room too, and a big change now. Those with a BA Gold Guest List card can use the dining room in economy. It all goes perfectly with the De Morganson DMZ Chardonnay. It's far from a demilitarized zone, although you do wonder where all the people are. There's a staffed cocktail bar and a cheery barman who happily mixed up a mojito for me and a shot of every whiskey just to ensure they were of the finest quality, washed down with a Brewdog chaser. Not bad at all then in British Airways in first. Well, the first class lounge anyway. Now I can't hang around though as I run around like a bull in a china shop filming. Lots more to do, I say to the flunky as I pluck a piece of Ming vase from my hoof. Now, in case you're wondering how I got in here, never let the airlines know I'm travelling. I just used an unregarded perk of oneworld. With a top elite card, and you don't get more elite than having gold status with BA, you can access any oneworld lounge, first or business, with a oneworld ticket, like BA. So let's crack on with the crawl, past the poor unwashed who've got to pay for their pint, and what should we try next? How about going American to the AA First Lounge? Now, if you feel the need to reach for the AA right now, don't. I haven't broken down, but the American First Lounge has. This is a lounge which has just reopened with great fanfare because it's had a new kitchen installed. And that's it. For the poor unfortunates travelling in first class on American, you get this. Exactly the same furniture as they installed nearly 30 years ago. It's woeful, genuinely bad, and the best that can be said for the seats are they're hygienic and functional. The styling wouldn't be out of place in a hospital cafe. And it must be said, they don't make them like this anymore. And that's not a compliment. I was about to run screaming for the sheer architectural joy and culinary sophistication that is the British Airways Lounge, but I decided to give AA a chance. This was a mistake. At least there's a decent free pour bar so you can numb your aesthetic sensibilities, which is difficult to say after 4 bottles of wine and a dozen cocktails. Still, nothing more to be done than taste the best wine that the AA can bring me down gently with. And the AA had joined the RHC, no, not the Automobile Club, but Rhubarb, who now provide the catering. And the revamp has included a dozen a la carte tables to rival Cathay, apparently, where the menu today was chicken fish or goat. I asked for the chicken fish, and the waiter looked at me as if I was mad and suggested I dive into the buffet. Well, the moon may be made of cheese, and the AA have decided that their salad menu should follow suit. Cheese Caesar with a fresh soft cheese on a lettuce leaf, and a cheesy panini with a mushroom, along with cheese sandwiches and a cheese wrap. But you know what? It's actually not that bad. Aesthetically, it's got all the design credentials of Aldi, but I almost came to like my 6th lunch of the day. Not quite enough to hit the highlight of the lounge though, the Sweet Towers of Sadness. Instant onset diabetes isn't my preference. After all, the nearly 3-year refit has added a champagne shelf, which is far more healthy. After all, it comes from a fruit, doesn't it? It's a real shame. I thought I'd managed to get around all the lounges at Terminal 3 today, but the business class lounges will have to wait for a second attempt yet another day. I need to get on that flight to Gothenburg, as I've got to connect to a flight to Australia, and I'd much rather be there than Terminal 3. And I thought this was time to board my A319 for a short hop to Gothenburg. Or so I thought. Bit of a delay getting on board. Getting a bit worried now. Good, I'm on board now, and right up front of business class on the completely full, and in fact, actually totally oversold flight, which is also insanely hot. And there's no power in the cabin, which is a bit disconcerting. We soon found out why.
Been a delay to this service. The reason for that is we don't have a little power unit at the back of the aircraft that we normally use isn't working today, unfortunately, which that normally provides us with our electricity and our cooling air on the ground, which is why you might notice the cabin temperature's higher than usual. So we need to wait, unfortunately, until we can start an engine on stand before we get some cooling air. As soon as that happens, I'll get the temperature in the cabin as cold as possible. So I do appreciate it is probably slightly uncomfortable at the moment. So that's the second apology for the temperature in the cabin.
I think he means the APU.
The delay at the moment is we're just waiting for the last of the cargo and the bags to be loaded onto the aircraft.
Yes, the truckers had to come over from Terminal 5 to kick us into gear and get us started. Good, there we go, we've got one engine started, number 1. Number 2's proving a bit more stubborn.
Once we're airborne, we've got a fairly good flight time. Some tailwinds helping us along today, about 1 hour and 25 minutes. And of course, we'll do everything that we can to make up as much time as possible to get you into Gothenburg as close to schedule as possible.
Hurrah! Both engines turning and burning. We're moving, and off to Sweden we go. Or so I thought.
Turn to stand, and then we'll give you further update once we're on stand with respect to an engineer. Thank you for your patience.
Great. Back to the stand and call for an engineer, who of course has to come from Terminal 5.
We are obviously back on stand. We're now waiting for an engineer to come and have a look at this fault message that we've got and see if they can rectify that. For the moment, I'll turn the seatbelt signs off. If you want to take anything from your hand luggage, do anything you want to with that regard, then feel free. At the moment, I'm afraid I've got no indication of how long this delay might be. As soon as I do find something out, I'll of course pass that information on to you. And I believe that the cabin crew will be passing through some water, so for your comfort.
Okie dokie, this is turning into an EU compensation claim. We're just kicking into 3 hours delay now. Brexit may have happened, but EC261 is still on the statute books this week. We may get compensation, but quite frankly, I'd rather be in Gothenburg.
Troubleshoot the situation. Realise passenger convenience, the temperature is going to be starting to increase. We've already asked for some rear steps to be placed at the aircraft door at the back, and that means we'll be able to open that aircraft door and get some air flowing through.
So this isn't where I expected to be.
In the cabin is unacceptable. For the last 5-10 minutes, my first officer and myself have been trying to arrange buses that will at least be air conditioned, and then we'll be able to get you off the aircraft onto air conditioned buses. Unfortunately, there are some issues with this to do with airport regulations, but we're doing everything we can to get you off the aircraft into a more comfortable environment. Please just do bear with us for the next 5-10 minutes while we try and get all the logistics sorted. Thank you.
Well, there you go. I should be in Gothenburg by now, but after having got out as far as the runway, when spending 3 hours sitting there, we've all gone back to the terminal, and we're waiting to see if we can make it to Gothenburg tonight. I did have high hopes I would be checking into Istanbul, then Singapore, then Sydney tomorrow. At the moment, remote, there is still some hope of that, but hopes are now very dim.
We are also bringing over a disruption trolley with some food.
Wow, I finally get to see it. The famous British Airways delay trolley. And look at the snacks available. It's packets of crisps or a chocolate bar.
Please be advised that all customers will be accommodated in the Crown Plaza, which is on Terminal 4. So customers will be advised to make their way through Heathrow Express, which is a free train ticket to your hotel, which is Crown Plaza, Terminal 4. All customers will be re-accommodated onto the next available service. We have been advised that tomorrow's Gothenburg service will have an aircraft upgrade, so majority of customers will be travelling tomorrow. Just to clarify, your bags will be available on reclaim number 10, and very shortly we will be giving out hotels for all customers, which will include your breakfast, lunch and dinner in one hotel voucher, as well as your refreshment vouchers, which are valid to use at any coffee shops or Marks and Spencer's outside in the arrivals hall.
Right, I'm collecting a hotel voucher and a free train to Terminal 4. The Crown Plaza occupies exactly the same building as the Holiday Inn Express, and come to that, the same bar, the same restaurant, the same building exists. You just get a slightly better bed if you get a hotel voucher for the Crown Plaza next door. Of course, British Airways used to be based in Terminal 4, and that's where it still has arrangements for all the passengers who never knew they wanted to spend the night here. Well, this is fun. I did plan to be on my way to Sydney in Australia, via Singapore. Instead, where am I stuck? The Crown Plaza at London Heathrow. Well, at least we get some free dinner. Oh dear, it's a tray of slots for a buffet dinner called the delay dinner. So much for the free dinner and free breakfast. Right, let's hit the bar. And there's a bit of a party atmosphere going on here. Coming up in the next episode, I'll be doing this all over again, rather like Groundhog Day, but this time slumming it with the business class lounges from British Airways to Cathay Pacific to American Airlines, and then back to Qantas again. Join me in part 2 as I've got many more lounges to go in the next episode of Trying to Escape from Heathrow, as I hope to avoid 4 lounges and a cancellation trolley and instead go from the business lounges to the business class section of British Airways. You never know, I might actually get on a plane. Click on the next video now to see what happens next.